Week 15 of the fantasy football season. And here's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking this week. The first guy, Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs. So Travis Kelce, the numbers haven't been like they were last season, where he's had one elite game after another, but he's still a steady tight end week in and week out. You know, you're getting 15, 18 fantasy points at the position. And this week, after a tough loss last week, the way that game went down, I think he explodes for one of the better games he's had all season at a weak New England Patriot defense. Number 2, TJ Hockenson of the Minnesota Vikings. So TJ Hockenson, numbers took a little bit of hit with Joshua Dobbs. Nick Mullins now starting quarterback for this Minnesota Viking team. But when Mullins came in towards the end of that game, he was targeting Hockenson and he was making good chunk plays. So this week at Cincinnati, he's a matchup problem for safeties and linebackers. And TJ Hockenson, he's pushing for that number 1 spot as the season goes on. Number 3, George Kittle of the San Francisco 49ers. So this 49er team totally turned things around after started off 5-0, went to 5-3, and now 10-3 on the season. And George Kittle's been a big part of it. So this week, a good matchup at the Arizona Cardinals. Him and Brock Purdy have a great rapport. Kittle a smooth route runner, and he's a matchup problem still. It's always been health has been the problem at times that's held them back. But this week with a great matchup at Arizona and Kittle playing good football and him and Purdy locked in for Sam Laporta, the Detroit Lions. So what a rookie season it's been for Sam Laporta. He's making plays. Him and Jared Goff have a great rapport. He's the number 2 option in this passing game behind Amon St. Brown. And he's just been a matchup problem all season to Sam Laporta. That's why I think they were comfortable last offseason to trade away TJ Hockenson, and they knew they were going to target a tight end like Laporta. So this week with a good matchup versus the Denver Broncos, where their linebacking crew really isn't all that great versus obviously tight ends on the season, I think Laporta goes out there and has a good game. After last week, it was a pedestrian game for the most part. Number 5, Evan Ingram of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Evan Ingram, we know he's a good route runner. Him up in the inside or outside of a formation. And right now, it looks like he's the number 1 target on this offense with Christian Kirk out multiple weeks. Calvin Ridley, last week, he didn't do much at Cleveland. And Evan Ingram found the end zone twice and kept Jacksonville in that ball game at the Browns. So right now, Evan Ingram all season, he's been going out there making plays. And now with 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. And this week, you know, they're going to have to go out there and make plays versus a good Baltimore defense. And like I said, Evan Ingram, in my opinion, is the number 1 option in the passing game. Then Calvin Ridley, the way things have gone over the last few weeks and just in the season in general, Ridley's disappeared a lot, where Evan Ingram, besides 2 or 3 bad games, has been pretty consistent. Number 6, Trey McBride of the Arizona Cardinals. So Trey McBride, it's been a great season for him. And then they released Zach Ertz a few weeks ago. McBride's going to be the starting tight end remainder of the season, and rightfully so. And with this Arizona Cardinal team not going anywhere this year, I see them play the young players. And McBride only in his 2nd season already moving up the ranking board weekly as a top tight end in this league. He can run all the routes. A few seasons ago, one of the top college tight ends in all the land. And this week, I know it's a tougher matchup versus San Francisco, but if they're down early and often and have to throw the football 35, 40 times, Trey McBride's going to get a lot of that, in my opinion. Number 7, David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. So Joe Flacco's made this whole offense better as a whole, and it's paying off dividends for fantasy owners. Amari Cooper, he had one of the better games over the last few weeks with Flacco last week. David Njoku at 90 yards found the end zone twice with a big performance, and this week in a good matchup versus a weak Chicago Bear defense. Njoku could go out there once again and put in a solid performance, and he's a matchup problem. This guy could be a wide receiver if he wanted to with his speed and his athleticism. So this week in a good matchup with the Bears coming to town and him and Flacco locked in, once again, I see him having a good game. Number 8, Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. So Dalton Kincaid, every week, he's going to be a top 5, top 8 tight end in the rankings. He's the number 2 option in that passing game. Gabe Davis really hasn't done much over the last few weeks. Shakir, he's more of a deep ball threat and nothing in the slot. And James Cook's starting to get things going in the receiving game. But Dalton Kincaid's a matchup problem. He was the 26th pick overall in this season's draft for a reason. And I know this week it's a tough matchup versus the Dallas Cowboys, but I still have confidence he could go out there and put in a top 10 performance. Number 9, speaking of the Cowboys, is Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys. So this week it's going to be a potential shootout with the Bills and the Cowboys, and possibly the game of the week between these 2 teams. So Jake Ferguson, number 2 option in this passing game as well, behind CeeDee Lamb. I know Brandon Cooks has emerged finally over the last few weeks, this Dallas Cowboy team, but it's still Jake Ferguson working the seam of the field, making the big plays, and he's hurdling defenders as well. So this week in a potential shootout, like I said, at the Buffalo Bills, I think Ferguson once again has a solid ball game. Number 10, Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Dallas Goedert, he's gone out there from injury last week at the Dallas Cowboys, and he put up 7 fantasy points in PPR leagues, but he definitely was a missing link in this offense for Philadelphia. The Eagles, it was a tough game for them, no doubt about it, but this week at Seattle, I think he could find holes in the middle of the field, and it opens up the whole field. We saw A.J. Brown get easier targets and make better plays in last week's game, and Dallas Goedert, there's some weeks where out of nowhere he's going to get 18, 20 fantasy points in PPR leagues. So this week at Seattle, it wouldn't surprise me that he does it. Number 11, Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints. So Taysom Hill, he missed last week's ball game, and hopefully he returns this week versus the New York Giants. And it's a big game for this New Orleans Saints team. So Taysom Hill, we know is a gadget guy. A lot of goal line plays they give him from the playbook. Could throw the football, catch the football, but mostly running it is Taysom Hill. And now, obviously with Derek Carr not 100%, and Taysom Hill, we could see him coming in on goal line packages. As long as he's he's pretty much always a top 12 weekly option at the position. And we know this New York Giant defense is middle of the pack. Number 12, Isaiah Likely of the Baltimore Ravens. So Likely's been filling in the last few weeks since Mark Andrews went down with the leg injury and out for the season. So Likely last week, he had a big touchdown over 50 yards. And this guy's explosive, and he does most of his work yard after catch. Is likely what we've seen of him last season towards the end of the year when he filled in for Andrews, and the last few weeks now since he's filled in for Andrews. He had a good college football career. This Raven team was high on him, and you see it on the field already in 2 weeks that he started. He's going out there making plays, and he's paying dividends for fantasy owners. Number 13, Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. So Kyle Pitts, I know last week found the end zone, but pretty much this year his ceiling's been 7 to 9 fantasy points in PPR leagues. This week, a middle of the pack matchup with the Panthers. I know the Panthers are the worst team in the league, but they're better against the pass this season. But you could run the football all over this Panther team. So Kyle Pitts, if he had a better quarterback, obviously he would be a top 10 option every week. But Desmond Ritter's definitely held this offensive back all season for the most part, in my opinion. So this week, Kyle Pitts, if you don't find the end zone, like I said, 7 to 9 fantasy points at most, you're going to get out of him. Number 14, Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears. It's been a solid season for the most part. Well, Cole Kmet and him and Justin Fields, we know have a good rapport. He works the middle of the field. He's a matchup problem for the most part versus safeties and linebackers, and he's a red zone threat as well. It's 4.65 in the red zone is Cole Kmet, where Justin Fields and him have hooked up a lot over the last couple seasons in that term. So this week, I know it's a tough matchup at the Cleveland Browns, one of the better defenses in the league, but if it's one way that could attack him, I think it's finding Cole Kmet where all the attention will go to DJ Moore and spying on Justin Fields that he's not running a lot. In the 15th and final tight end on rankings, Darren Waller of the New York Giants. So we don't know if Waller's going to come off injury reserve and play in this game. But this Giant team, all of a sudden, they still got a chance, only a game out from a playoff spot here. Tommy DeVito's taking over the town and playing good football, especially with that nice victory on Monday night. So Darren Waller, it was a mixed bag of results early in the season before he went down with injury. Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. So this week, if he does return, at least it's indoors. No weather he has to deal with, and just at New Orleans. And Darren Waller, he still could go out there and make plays, but injuries have been the problem holding him back as well over the last few weeks. So if he does play, I'm not expecting a huge game out of him, but definitely someone to crack the top 15. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking for week 15 of the fantasy football season.